Round like a circle in a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel, never ending or beginning, like the circles that you find in the windmills of your mind.
Welcome back to episode 146 of the Stogie Geek Show. Will Cooper here, flying solo tonight with Chris and Nick back in the studio. And we're going to get into our second segment with Tom Pearson of Commonwealth Cedar Spills. But, real quick, as far as a debonair ideal goes, it's real important that we light our cigars properly and correctly. And what I've really discovered is over time, as far as lighting your cigar, is it's real important to get that good start as far as you light that cigar. If you're lighting a cigar and you're struggling to light it, suddenly you could be behind the eight ball, so to speak, and you could be fighting a battle. When I was down in Honduras recently, all I had was Bic lighters to light cigars, and in a windy bus, and it was terrible, right? So I couldn't enjoy any cigars because there was wind with the windows open on the bus, and I was using this Bic lighter. I couldn't get a good thing, and it's just you just sometimes can't recover. So Tom's going to talk to us about his product, Cedar Spills, and we're going to get into it with Tom momentarily. But before we do, I just want to bring up a couple of sponsors. So, Chris, we're going to put up the sponsors now, who are going to also sponsor the segment. This segment is brought to you by Saga Cigars, makers of the Saga Golden Age. The Golden Age is a cigar that takes you back to the classic days of cigar smoking. Through the 6 generations of experience by the Reyes family, the Saga Golden Age delivers a timeless blend that uses the nobility of the tobacco to bring you the perfect balance of power and flavor. It narrates better than words the history of a family's tradition in tobacco, delivering one much like the ones they used to smoke during the times of Hemingway. Saga Golden Age is a full body, full flavor Dominican Puro with tobaccos from one farm. The blend features a Corojo 2006 wrapper and filler from original Cuban seeds grown in the Dominican Republic. Available at 4 sizes at an affordable price, the Saga Golden Age is sure to please and take you back on a journey to yesteryear. Cigar connoisseurs are already raving about this exquisite cigar that pays homage to Christopher Columbus's discovery of tobacco during his expedition of the New World. This medium to full-bodied cigar shows off the exquisite construction that is expected by master blender A.J. Fernandez. This gorgeous box press cigar features a delicious dark chocolate Nicaraguan wrapper that houses a blend of Ometepe, Condega, and Esteli filler that is bound but with a jalapa binder. Once lit, the perfectly balanced and refined A.J. Fernandez New World gives off a beautiful billow of smoke that hits you immediately with some spice and citrus flavors. As you begin to lose yourself in the rich aromas of the New World, the flavors become more complex and begin to express hints of hazelnut and coffee. New World is a first-time collaboration between A.J. Fernandez and his father Ismael Fernandez, which really makes this cigar stand out in the A.J. Fernandez line. To commemorate this union of father and son, A.J. Fernandez is offering you this masterpiece at an MSRP of $6, which is unheard of for a cigar of this caliber. A.J. Fernandez invites you to embark on the journey and smoke what he guarantees will be one of the most talked about cigars of the new year. New World, Cigar Journal's #1 cigar of the year. And just a couple of notes, your Saga cigars, they will be at the IPCPR trade show showing off the Golden Age and the blend #7. And AJ Fernandez not only has the New World, but they have the New World Connecticut. And I believe they're getting ready to roll out something else, which hopefully they'll be ready to talk about soon. So, without further ado, I want to welcome back Mr. Tom Pearson of Commonwealth Cedar Spills. Tom, Will Cooper in North Carolina, how are you doing tonight?
There.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hold on.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I hear you fine.
All right. Sorry about that. Yep. Sorry. I'll speak up a little bit. How you doing tonight?
Doing very well. Tom, thank you so much. I know I kind of asked you to come on short notice because Paul could not be here tonight. But we're really glad to have you. And I'm actually a fan of your products. I think the Cedar Spills, as far as using a Cedar spill, you have one of the best, if not the best product on the industry right now. Um, at the same time, I also love your passion for this industry, and I've just gotten to really enjoy talking to you right now.
Well, same back, right back to you, Coop. I've said it so often in all our social media that we put out there amongst all the cigar and pipe smokers. You're one of the most active, prolific, genuine, consistent cigar commentators, I guess, if that's even the right word, out there on what's going on currently in the cigar market. But better than that, and that kind of goes back to that, I guess, consistency. You'll do I guess I call it a preemptive review or an early review, and then you'll follow up with what actually came out to market, and then maybe even later, how did that cigar sell or age a little further down the road, maybe a month or a year, and that's kind of uncommon amongst a lot of guys and gals out there that are reviewing cigars to have that depth and that follow up. And I think a lot of us that are really into cigars and like to try a variety of things appreciate it because maybe we tried something and it wasn't great, but it was early, and if we got back to it, maybe it got better. So, kudos to you for what you're doing, and for the Cigar Media Association as well. A great organization you've got. Kind of, I know you were kind of at the forefront getting that out there.
Thank you, Tom, and appreciate. A lot of interesting what we do is, and I think this is. There's a lot of great online media sites, but I think one thing that really predicates us is we really do want to get the information, and that not only helps us inform people, but when we're reviewing a cigar and we have accurate press information, it makes the review process actually a lot easier because we've already done the legwork up front in reporting the background on the cigar. So it's kind
Yeah,
of our little secret there to do that. And we take the time to validate the news, which is, I think, a little different than a lot of other outlets. Not saying it's wrong, it's just what we do different. And that validation process helps with the learning so Paul and I really have that. I think that's kind of, we've ingrained that into our engine there.
well, it's a good thing. I know we all appreciate it. Definitely, and it also, it kind of shakes the industry up a bit as far as, and I know you know this, and maybe I'm not saying it as well as you might, but there are a lot of old established media, whether it's print or some radio and some other things, and I think in the past 5 to 10 years, as all media has gone, it's gone to more mobile podcasting, netcasting, just the internet, the impact that's had. And I think a lot of, and I hate to say it, the IPCPR was one of them for a long time, were kind of reluctant to give folks like yourself and other ones that weren't associated with a monolithic, if you will, magazine or radio or TV organization the time of day. And I think it took them a little while to come around, but you guys, you didn't just complain about it. You organized, you presented an argument, and you presented a great membership, and it's been nice to see that.
Yeah, no, and appreciate it. I think that there were guys who came along before me, and they obviously we're all human, and there were mistakes I think that were made earlier on. And it's tough because um, a lot of when people get into this, they don't realize how much work it is, so they tend to fall off very easy. And I think it's the ones who have some long term, been around for longer. Those are the ones that aren't going anywhere. So that's kind of, and I think that's what a lot of the industry needed to see, as long as with some of the professionalism.
Sure,
So, yep,
absolutely.
yep. So, let's kind of turn this back to you. For folks who might not know, you make obviously cedar spills. What got you into making cedar spills?
Um, Basically, about, and the business has been going. We're going into our third year. And about 4 to 5 years ago, someone gave me, I want to say it was a Padron 1964. I believe that's what the stick was. And it was at a kind of transition point in my professional career. I had worked for 10 plus years in the software industry, and always had it in the back of my mind to take a year off. And after taking a year off, or starting to take a year off after happily leaving the professional career, I got really bored. And someone had given me that Padron and the Kentucky Derby. I'm here in Louisville, Kentucky. That's where we're headquartered. And I went to the Derby and I got a chance to smoke it. and it really got me into cigars. And like I imagine most people are, when somebody gives you something, and before that I had smoked cigars very infrequently, probably one or two a year, if that. When somebody gives me something as unique as that, the cigar in general, and the Padrones are great, but if someone gives me a beer or a whiskey or something, I start to do research and look into it. And in reading up on cigars, and then of course it was, I can't remember who gave it to me now, but it kind of opened up my curiosity, and I start reading up on cigars, and I go through a bunch of books, and I go online, and I started. I think that's how I stumbled across you, Coop, and others. I saw this thing mentioned called a cedar spill. And I think maybe the folks at Cigar Aficionado had a little web video talking about, various ways to light it. And they had a little wooden strip, and it literally was a piece of wood they had peeled off, or a piece of wood they had broken out of a cigar box and used that. And they just talked about it, but it was real quick and over with. And I was like, all right. So between reading all these and seeing that, I was like, I want to buy some. Couldn't find any. Nobody sold them. Nobody really made them, and it was literally everybody's post online was find a box, a cigar box that has the sheet of Spanish cedar inserted, break that off, cut a strip out and use that. And I was like, okay, so I tried that, and the epiphany that hit me that there might be something to it is I went and got that same Padron, lit the cigar with that cedar spill, and it tasted more. It didn't taste different, like it didn't taste radically different, but I tasted more of it sooner. And I was like, wow, there's something to this. And I guess the real thing that kind of was my, build a better mousetrap moment was when you light a piece of cedar, especially what goes in the boxes, that sheet, that again, not a lot of cigar makers put them in the boxes. It's another added expense and another process in the packaging. But when you light that cedar strip, it'll light and it'll burn. It's wood. It will burn. It may take a little longer. It's a little thicker than the cedar spills we make. But I lit the cigar, tasted more of it sooner, and I went and I just waved it in the air to put it out. And I was wearing a nice white dress shirt at the time, and all that charcoal and soot and ash from that strip of wood fell on my shirt. And then I just kind of, you know, I don't know, grabbed my shirt, got it off of me, and went, there's got to be a better way. And that was my real epiphany right there, that there might be something to this. Since I was looking for it, maybe others would too. It's a tradition we've all heard about, maybe read about, sort of, but never really saw because no one was selling them. And the only people I saw that did try to sell them was some German company in the late 80s, early 90s that went defunct, and they just weren't something there. So I made a prototype, made several prototypes at different sizes, different thicknesses of wood, different designs and shapes for that strip of wood, and finally found something that I liked, that burned well, that burned evenly, had a nice design and would work. And then decided if I'm really going to make a go at this, it's got to stand out in the marketplace. And that's when we started putting, before we came out, we started putting names, logos, foreign languages, hashtags, engraving on the spills. Because other than that, it's just a piece of wood and it'll burn. But if you can put it alongside a cigar, you can put it as a keepsake. It can serve as a reminder or a promotional item. Then maybe there's some business model to it. Um, and happily, we're into our third year, and it's been going. So long response to a simple question you had, but does that make sense?
Absolutely. And so there's two things I'll talk about with that. So first is the actual using the cedar spill itself. And here's what I've found. I'm using your product. I just lit up this Monty actually with the cedar spill. I don't know if it was on the air, but what I've noticed is the big difference of using the cedar spill is in that the beginning of that cigar. And if you
Mm-hmm.
really want to get the difference, it there's just whatever that harshness sometimes that you'll get, that
Mm-hmm.
overbearing. It's much. That's what I see. I see it's much cleaner at that start, and that's what I was talking about in the intro of kind of getting that start on the cigar. It kind of just it sets the table, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right, and that's why I said earlier that same Padron I had a month or so after the first, when I used the spill, I tasted more sooner, and it really comes down to having a softer flame. Spills have been around in my research since the Europeans first started trading down with the Caribbean islands and middle Mexico, Central America. Um, and it was really just, spill comes from split of wood somewhere in Europe. You split wood and you put it in the fireplace. And then you might take another split of wood to move the fire from the fireplace to the oven, to the oven, to the campfire, to the campfire, to the candle, to whatever. And somewhere between Europe and down in the part of the world where Spanish was more prevalent, split of wood became spill. And because mahogany, and that's really what Spanish cedar is, a lot of folks don't know that. Spanish cedar, which is what we use, AA grade, the best Spanish cedar we can get, is actually mahogany, and it grows in the exact same locations where some of the best tobacco in the world is grown, kind of from, you could say, Key West, Florida, maybe mid Mexico, all the way down to Brazil and a little further, if you will, if you can visualize that geographically. And you like to use this wood because it has so little oil and water naturally in it. It doesn't impart, the the water and the oils when you light it into your cigar. So you're starting off with a great piece of wood to light that doesn't have a lot of resin to contaminate your cigar. And the fact that when you're using a spill, it makes you slow down. It's part of your ritual, or at least it should be. You're using a softer flame to light your cigar. When you light the foot of your cigar and you're rolling it in that soft flame, and you could get the same flame from a match, and if you do use a match, let the chemical head burn off. Make sure you're just burning wood. You don't want potassium and phosphates and glass particles in your cigar. Just use a softer flame, and that's exactly what you were alluding to right there, Coop. You just taste more sooner because you're not putting so much charcoal on the foot of your cigar, which so many of us do now with these single, double, triple, quad blow torches because we're all in a hurry. We all have to light it up and just get it rip roaring, big and red and glowing orange. Well, when I have a cigar, it's my time out, it's my slow down time, so I want to do it right. And and for me, the best compliment I've got is the one you just said, and you've phrased it so well. I just tasted more of it sooner. It wasn't as harsh. It's a little different cigar. Same cigar, it just tastes better.
No, I really agree with that. Now, as I'm smoking my
Mm-hmm.
cigar,
Mm-hmm.
there's always the touch up process. Do
Sure.
you recommend using the cedar spill for the touch up as well?
Yeah, you can. I mean, it really showcases off best when you're just at first, lighting your cigar. And people always go, "Well, how do you light it?" Well, you put it in a candle. You take your torch and you light the spill. However it takes. We've got a little fire icon on the very tip.
Yep.
That's the other one. You light one end of the cedar spill and you hold the other end. I've had people hold it in the middle, and I'm like, you kind of don't want to do that because the fire is going to burn. Not like a sparkler or a fuse, but it's going to burn. But yeah, you can use a spill over and over again on your cigar to relight it, as long as there's a little bit of wood left there and you can do it safely. Um, and now actually we make two different spills. We've got our classic spill that I think you're probably very familiar with,
Yep.
Coop. It's about 10 inches long. It's tapered. It's got a nice rounded point where the flame is and a handle at the other end. And then we make a new one, which we just come out, which we call spills by the bunch. That's about 7 inches long, but you could use either one of them over and over again until they're gone, to light initially or to relight your cigar. Now, I will say, spills are not meant for the golf course, not meant to light your cigar while you're driving down the road in your car. Anywhere you've got a little wind and a little fire, you probably don't want to use a spill. It's just going to it's going to blow up and light up like a ball of flame, and you don't quite want that experience with your cigar. But when you're taking the time out to enjoy the cigar, the ritual, the process, use a cedar spill. You'll just taste more sooner.
No, absolutely. Now, you talked about spills by the bunch. How
Mm-hmm.
is that product different from the classic spill?
Okay.
What was the positioning with that?
So right out of the door, we came out with our classic spill, 10 inches long, rounded tip, handle to hold it, a great looking design. That's what we've got patented, and that's what we brought out, and that is primarily sold through our retailers. I'm really proud to say, and I wouldn't have imagined this going into the third year. In the U.S., I believe we're in 30 plus stores in 16. I'm horrible with some numbers. 16 to 18 states. There are some states where we have absolutely no retailers and we get online orders. But we're also now on 5 continents, which is, for me, astounding. We picked up somebody in Uruguay, South America, who found us and carries our stuff. But that first spill, our retail, it's our classic spill, is only available through retailers, and we put them in a box. Retail prices range between $25 to $30 for a box, a spill box, if you will, that has about 50 to 60 of those spills in there. Now, the new spills are called spills by the bunch. They're a different look altogether. They're only 7 inches long, a little wider at the tip, a little wider at the end. Still allow us to do things like engrave them, names, logos, languages. And I have to give a lot of credit to a couple folks on this one. Fred Rui of Nomad, I think he's at Godfather up on the Twitter universe. I think you've had a couple of Nomad cigars over the years.
Oh yeah, good old. I love Fred's been on the show a couple times. A good friend of
Yeah,
the show.
yeah, I love Fred. I love his irreverence. I love his cigars. They're just great.
He's
But
doing a great job, man.
yeah, well, for him, when he's done some events at IPCPR and other out on the road, he's done pairings or tastings with his cigar and whiskeys and other things. And he asked me out of the blue once, can you make a spill that I can put in a bag with my cigars and put out there, because the 10-inch spill isn't going to work. It's too big for most bags. And I was like, well, maybe. And we've put out a tiny version of our classic spills with the Cigar Rights of America. When you join, if you're a brand new member and you join up, and I encourage anybody listening to this for the first time or the next time, if you're not a member of Cigar Rights of America, they are the chief #1 lobbying group and a bunch of great men and women who are out there every day in every state and in the U.S. Capitol, battling for us to have the freedom to enjoy premium hand-rolled cigars. But Fred challenged me and said, I need something smaller that'll fit in the bag. And I looked at the CRA spills. I'm like, well, we could do that or come up with something better. And again, like we did with our classic spill, we made a number of different prototypes. We looked at and measured all sorts of different cigar bags from different retailers and wholesalers. And then we started looking at cigar caddies. You know, a lot of guys have big suitcases or briefcases. A couple guys like me have the smaller caddies. And I said, if we can find something that'll fit in a bag, whether it's from a cigar maker like Fred at Nomad, or the retailer behind the counter, or anybody's just going to throw a bunch in their caddy, that could be good. That might be an opportunity here. So we ran the numbers, came up with something, and our new spills by the bunch is available. But to make the numbers work, we sell them 1,000 at a time. So you have to buy 1,000 of them, and it's for $200. So that's about 20 cents a spill. You could use it once, twice, or 3 times per spill. It all depends on how quick you are at lighting them. But again, it's called Spills by the Bunch. Anybody can go to shop.cedarspills.com and look at our offerings, and you'll see it there. Spills by the Bunch. You get 1,000 of them for $200. And I'm happy to say we've had a number of cigar makers. Enrique Sanchez at 1502. The guys and gals over at Black Label Trading Company. The guys at the CRA is now getting them. They're kind of replacing our old small classic spill with this new spill. And we've had interest from a lot of other organizations. And these are not cigar people, folks. These are just businesses that you and I interact with every day, whether it's banks or golf courses or restaurants or even cigar lounges. Have interest in them because it's a great little promotional item that fits well in so many aspects where cigars are enjoyed in their business, whether it's during the business day or at the golf course or when they're relaxing or they're home or they just want a gift. So we came up with these spills, same great material, Spanish cedar, AAA grade. It's just smaller. And the only difference here is when you do the engraving, you only do it on the top inch or the top 2 inches of the spill. So we can put a logo on there. You were down at the Great Smoke with Abe, right?
Yep, and I got a couple of them in my bag.
Yeah, and that was our very first, and I'm so grateful for Abe and his entire staff at the Smoke-ins down all over. Well, they're all over Florida. That was kind of our first big event where we kind of premiered them out there, and we put a couple in every bag. We actually gave away a year's supply of spills if somebody found the special spill that had Abe's face and some other writing on it. So that was a lot of fun, and the response and the feedback has been really good. Now I have to say it's been really small because we only put it out there first at his big event. It's not like we're having a nationwide sensation, but amongst cigar smokers who really want to enjoy their cigar, they get this piece of wood. They saw the ad in the uh, program guide for the smoke-in. Smoke-in's great smoke, and I think it piqued their curiosity. So they started to use it, and then of course we've started to get orders in. So it's kind of fun when I can sit there and we can just crank out a couple thousand spills or 10,000 spills, or our largest order is just over 20,000 spills of these new bunch spills. Um, because people, I guess they like them. I guess they're using them, and they see the value there. So for me, as a bit of an inventor, an entrepreneur, and a cigar smoker and lover myself, it's just really rewarding, and the feedback's been real positive.
Yeah, and you know what I love about them is, like I said, first of all, it is the designs are great. I mean, so you can, as far as the architecture of the product goes, it's better than using a strip out of a cigar box,
Mm-hmm.
hands down.
Yeah.
And as far as the wood goes, but I love the personal touches that you can put on these things. I have the wooden case you gave me, and I have another wooden case I got from the 2013 Tweet Up, and fantastic because if I travel, I just take these. I take these in my bag, and then I throw a book of matches in there, and I have because I can't, you can't take butane lighters on a plane.
Exactly. Yep.
So
You have something
yeah,
to get through TSA. Yep.
yep.
Absolutely.
But sometimes if obviously if I didn't have the nice box, it protects them, and I just know they're not gonna get damaged. The funny thing is when yeah, I was actually trying to find that Cedar spill with Abe's face on it. Did anyone actually get it?
I think somebody did find it. I think what may have happened though is the name of the person is still under investigation, if you will, because there are a lot of folks down there at the event. Obviously, um, I think so. I heard as much. We've got a couple names still, and I'm like, all right, well, if we can limit it down to, we can find the actual one. That's great. I don't mind sending it out to, if we think three people won or want to claim it, I'll send 365, and that was the deal, a 1 year supply. I'll send 365 spills with Abe's face on it to whoever he wants. But I think there was just a bit of contention there, which is great because I know that event. I've been there. It's raucous. It's fun. It's a great time. But again, it's been so rewarding to put a product in the marketplace in this industry, which is, I don't want to say it's insular, but it's full of a lot of established cigar makers, cigar companies, cigar brands, and accessories. And then it's also loaded with just a ton of brand new faces, new entrepreneurs, men and women who are just crazy enough to go out there and introduce a new cigar, a new something. So, I'm just kind of thrilled to be a real small part of it.
No, that's great. That's great. And the other thing I think that you've done is, and I was just talking to Steve about this, is you've really gone on the road yourself. I mean, you've kind of just basically you've hit the road, you've hit the pavement pounding, so to speak.
Hmm.
Going to events and going to cigar shops over the past 3 years,
Hmm.
to get the word out. And I think that's been a very effective tool to do.
Oh yeah, you have to. I mean, I know and I travel probably. Oh geez, I probably travel 20% less than the cigar makers. And granted, maybe they have bigger budgets, but I look at even some of the, if we want to say the smaller guys, the boutique guys, not the small shops, if you will, cigar makers. They travel all the time. I look at them on social media and Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and they're all over. I try to go as many places as I can, but in my scale, we're not the biggest workshop, and when orders come in online or when we've got corporate or another organization order, we're cranking things out. But there's so many great events out there, and obviously I go to IPCPR. It's the trade show. It's the big dog and pony show for all the retailers, everybody who's anybody, and that's fun. But it's always more engaging to go to like Abe's event, the Great Smoke, even go to Cigar Aficionados, the Big Smoke. A couple weeks ago, I was out in Wichita, Kansas, with the guys from Dissident, Ryan and Gordon, of Dissident Cigars. They have a cigar carnival, and I hadn't been to Wichita, Kansas before. Had an absolute blast out there. Um, I go to the Delaware Cigar Fest. Um, one of your, I don't know, well, I don't know, he's a competitor. There was another guy out there talking in a podcast. The Blow and Smoke podcast has a Pennsylvania cigar crawl of their own, Western PA, I guess. But you have to get out there and promote your product if you believe in it. But more importantly, as you know, it's the best chance to meet one on one all the people who may or may not want your product, use your product, or want to learn more about it. And what gets me is, for example, whether it's a Rocky Patel or a Lito Gomez or Fred Rui from Nomad, Enrique from 1502, or Jonathan Drew from Drew Estate. There's always guys and gals asking them a ton of questions, and that's normal. What are you making this year? What seeds are you using? What plants are you getting? What's the history? How long are they fermenting? What I call standard questions. Basically, it's a lot of things you go into, and then you go into a little more in your reviews, Coop. But what cracks me up are when guys are like, they're like, okay, where did the tobacco grow? Was it on the hill, or was it on the mountainside, or was it in the valley? What was it? You meet I call them the Uber cigar nerds, and they're a blast because they're so into it. But I'm like, the granularity of the question is like when you start asking for the pH balance of any fertilizers, natural, organic, or not, used in the process and farming. I'm like, okay, guy, you're taking it a little far. But again, you can't beat getting out on the road and meeting all those people and hearing what they have to say about your product, because it's the only way you improve your product. And I know for me, as just a little cigar accessory cedar spill manufacturer, I want to hear good, bad, and otherwise, and come up with different things. And to that end, we've designed spills for other people, cigar makers and organizations that aren't shaped like ours. It's a different cut. Like, we made one that I can only describe loosely as kind of a golf tee. I've had other guys that wanted them in tongue depressors, the shape of pencils, and again, they're using them for promotional items. But I wouldn't know that if I weren't out there engaging with people.
Oh, that's a real good point you make on that. Um, Another thing that you introduced a couple of years ago, and I think you're still doing it, are the placards.
Yeah, absolutely.
How are they doing? How are they doing? Maybe folks who don't know about those, talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. If you go to shop.cedarspills.com, that's our e-commerce site. And there's also cedarspills.com. It's kind of our education site. But at shop.cedarspills.com, we do something to benefit Cigars for Warriors, which is our official charity of Commonwealth Cedar Spills. We make placards. They're about 1 foot square, stained Russian birch wood. I think we stain them in mahogany, so it's a nice, deep, rich red. And what we do is we will engrave them with a cigar maker's logo. And I think right now we have 15 cigar makers, from Drew Estate to Nomad to 1502 to Terrazona, Eddie Terrazona Cigars, and Crowned Heads, Four Kicks, guys down in Tennessee. The idea was I liked what Cigars for Warriors do. If folks don't know, you'll see the boxes perhaps at some of your cigar shops and lounges where they take in donations or at events of cigars or matches or Bovita packs or water packs, or I give them Cedar Spills. They take all these donations, break them down, and send them out in small, those little white U.S. post office, if it fits, it ships boxes, and they ship out care packages of all this great cigarware to our troops who are basically serving overseas. So we started to make these placards because one of the only things that Cigars for Warriors doesn't have an overwhelming amount of, I mean, they have tons of cigars and Bovita packs and lighters and matches and cutters and spills, is money. I mean, they have some, and every time they do a shipment, they manage to cover the cost of postage. So I started making some placards for a local cigar shop. And someone was like, hey, can I buy one? And I never thought anybody would really want to buy one. So we reached out to a number of cigar manufacturers and we got permission. And now we sell them online. Classic was it's probably been 6 months maybe. Jonathan Drew came through here in Louisville, Kentucky. And I think we made 10 or 12 of them in 1 week because all the guys were like, well, we know you're here in Louisville, Tom, and Jonathan's here and we want one. And they're all individually numbered, so each one is unique in that sense. And you can buy them, hang them on the wall in your garage, your man cave, wherever you smoke a cigar. And if your cigar maker's coming through town, I'm sure he'll autograph it. it's just another great piece of swag. So they sell in peaks and valleys. Like around the holiday times, okay, they sell pretty well. Christmas, end of year, I get that. Father's Day, sell pretty well. Right after IPCPR, they kind of sell well. And it's probably because I'm at the show, I'm talking to the cigar makers, and they talk about it a little more. And of course, Cigars for Warriors talks about it. So, it's not a huge money maker, but we sell them all for $30. Again, it's engraved, and there's some samples up on the website there. And we engrave them all. They're each individually numbered, and they're covered with a little bit of polyurethane, so they're not going to fade. They're going to last really well. I've got one Jonathan signed for me up on my wall. Big fan of what he does with his cigars, as I am of so many of these crazy cigar makers. Because, I mean, I'm crazy maybe for making little wooden sticks, basically, you'll use to light a cigar. But there's not a whole lot of us out there doing that right now. Cigar makers, there's a lot of cigars out in the market. I don't think there's probably ever been a better time to be smoking cigars. But to be crazy enough to come out and to keep coming out every year, every 2 years with a new cigar, a new flavor, a new, something in a market that's full of hundreds of competitors, I just think is crazy. But yeah, the placards are going well. It's a great way for us to raise money for a great charity. Um, and we send them spills, but they take cash donations as well, and they do get cash throughout the year and such. But if they get millions of cigars and accessories to send out, they probably get tens of thousands of real U.S. dollars to offset postage. And everybody there's a volunteer. The people that break them down, ship them out, go to the post office and manage it. I mean, we're all volunteers, and they just get the job done. They don't take any payment for it. They just do it, and all the money goes to cover postage. So it's been great. I even made one. Actually, I remember. I know I made one for you, Coop, with your old logo, but you've since. I don't know if you did it yourself or hired out, but you've got a great looking logo or brand now. I probably need to make you another one and bring it down to the show for you.
Oh, it's nice. Yeah, in fact, you can't see it from the angle map, but it is hanging proudly in my garage, actually, which is my smoking room. So, and I still love that thing, and I really was appreciative of it. And folks can get a custom, folks can send a logo, and they can get a custom one done.
Well, they can send just if there's a cigar maker they like trying to remember who's the one we did Pargas. They can send anything, if they want one that we don't have. Like I said, we got 15 or 16 cigar makers now on the e-commerce site. But if they want one we don't have, for example, they want Rocky Patel. Well, okay, you send me that request. You come to my website, and if you don't see it there, you can drop me an email. I will then take that email and I will call Rocky down in Naples at their office and go, hey, I know I've talked to you about this before, but now I actually have one of your customers who would like this, and maybe you'll let me make one for them. And since you know what we're doing to support Cigars for Warriors, and all of the cigar makers are wonderful in their support for Cigars for Warriors. Sometimes just that one request from one fan, one cigar aficionado who really loves that brand, let's say it's Rocky Patel, that might just be enough for them to go, oh, yeah, sure, yeah, go ahead and make them. You've got our permission. We'll fill out the paperwork, and then I can start to sell them. So anybody who wants one can always make the request, and it happens. Oh, it was Padron. I had to think about that for a while. There was one guy who wanted one for Padron, and I think we got permission to make a one-off. And I understand, everybody's really protective of their brand.
Sure.
And everyone takes a while. I mean, to get Jonathan Drew, and this was before the sale to Swisher. It took a year of just going back and forth, and it wasn't they weren't being mean. They're just busy. He's busy. The lawyer's busy. They're all busy, and I'm the least concerned on their to-do list. But having a request from a customer and a fan definitely helps. So the placards are great. If you wanna buy a placard, the money, all of it, I make nothing off it. Goes right to Cigars for Warriors. If you want to just send Cigars for Warriors a check, they'll take your money that way too.
Yeah, and Tom, you were very nice enough to do the Cigar Media Association placards. I know that we've seen, John Huber had his, Dion. They've all proudly displayed them. In fact, I don't know if you knew this, but John Huber's placard was actually on a local Nashville TV station.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, that actually made the press there, and I definitely know so Jonathan Drew, great guy. I love him. We actually, a little breaking news here. We booked him for our show 150. He'll be our guest, and I know it's a tough. Not that he's not willing to do it. He's a tough guy to get a hold of. So we've been working that for a while. So I could definitely appreciate that as well.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, what you just said in passing is so true of everybody out there who's passionate and enjoys what they do. You're just busy. I know you're busy. I mean, we all know you're busy. We see your reviews on your website. We see it on Facebook, your social media. Jonathan's actually running, this $1 million cigar company. I'm running a almost six-figure cigar accessory business, and everybody's just busy doing what they want, and we all want to talk to each other, but there just never seems to be enough time. So
Yep.
I think folks are always, as long as folks are genuine and consistent and passionate about it, I think they're always glad to jump in and give a hand, with enough heads up, and the scheduling gods being cooperative there. So I was going to ask, and a little off topic here. I put it up on my social media account, and you said something about it as well. And it's more the pronunciation. That Alec Bradley stick I was smoking the other night. It's Coyol.
The Coil.
Coil. Okay.
Coil. Yeah, I did. Yep. Very
Coil.
interesting cigar. It was one of their under the radar releases.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you something. I was with Matt Booz back in March.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows Honduran tobacco a lot. He used a lot and he was really singing the praises of that cigar. And I went and tried it shortly afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just pleasant. I mean, I lit it with a spill, obviously, and I started smoking. I was like, wow, this is really, really, really good. And I love Alec Bradley's. I've had from the fine and rares to the American Puro to the family blend, which the family blend really was
underrated cigar.
Totally, and one of my absolute favorites. But after smoking, it's Coil like spring.
I think Coyal. Yeah.
Coyal.
I'm
you're
probably not
right.
saying it right either. So if Clay Roberts is listening, he can correct me.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Craig Vanderslice could correct me.
But it is definitely one of those like, wow, where did this come from? Why hadn't I heard about it or smoked it before? And one of those moments when and that's the best part about Instagram and all the social media. When you put something up there, you can get the immediate feedback from someone like, I loved it. Oh my God. And several people, yourself included, were like, totally underrated, totally under the radar. This was like just, I don't know how people missed it, but it's a solid, inexpensive stick.
Yeah, it's a single. Not just to say this. Tobacco from a Coil. The Coil farm is a pretty famed farm in Honduras. Yeah. I think the packaging was very different than Alec Bradley's. It was a much more simpler band design, and they're known for their ornate bands. And I don't know if that hurt the cigar. It shouldn't have, because that cigar, like I said, that is one of the better Alec Bradley releases I've had in the last couple of years. I love the Mundial. I know that's been a mixed reaction, but this one's an under the radar cigar. I would agree to check it out for sure.
Yeah, it was just one of those pleasant surprises, and I think you get the benefit too, and I know I do when I go out to cigar events, pardon me, and cigar shows. You come back after getting a ticket and participating in the event. You get a whole bunch of cigars, and you're like, okay. You go home like a kid in a candy store. You lay them out, and you're like, okay, I got to try this, had that, and move this around. And you want to smoke. I want to smoke everything that I've never smoked before that I got from the show. And if I did that, I'd be smoking 2 or 3 a day for a week to get it all done. And I don't. I take my time and I try to do it right. And there's just so many great sticks out there that are literally underappreciated, under the radar, that for whatever reason you don't hear about or didn't have a whole lot of marketing behind it. But at the same time, I'm like, wow, some crazy cigar making entrepreneur came out with another, hit, and it's just wild. But I'm kind of hoping people don't appreciate it as much, so it stays at that, really nice lower price point.
No, I definitely agree. And I remember when Casa Magna came out.
Yeah.
And I look at that. People can say what they want if they like it or not. It brought a lot of cigar smokers in when that number one cigar, because it was a number one cigar that everyone can afford to get. It brought a lot of people in. They may not have stuck with that cigar, but it brought a lot of people in.
Yeah, it's incredible that way. And I was gonna say, just to talk about it, I don't know how much time we have, but cigars that have just impressed me totally in the past year, I guess since last IPCPR, which so
Yep,
maybe
you
my
asked.
year,
That was the next question. So you're
yeah,
right on the. Yep.
yeah, from July to July, if that's my cigar tasting year. I was fortunate enough last year to be my little small 10 by 10 booth was right across from Kubanacon's booth, and Hiroshi had just come out and partnered or joined up or however he did it and came out with the HR, and I had one then, and it was incredible. And I've had a number since, and I bought the sampler pack. And I know a number of the guys on their sales team and their marketing folks are getting out there, and that stick. And I know it's got a high price point on it, all things maybe considered. It is so worth it. I've had every
Legit.
size of
Cigar
sampler.
to your candidate in my book. It's a
Yeah,
cigar to your candidate. Yeah.
yeah, it's phenomenal, and
Yep.
there aren't too many sticks that I can just go, hey, if you want a fine dessert at the end of the meal kind of cigar, or you're going to give someone something to really say thank you, that would definitely be one of them. It's I put it well. I like Bolivars, the Cuban Bolivars. Don't get them a lot unless I'm in Europe,
Hmm.
and I put it up there in my flavor and remembering profile. Like wow, and that's just the impact on me and my palate. But definitely a great cigar. Um, there's so many, but there's so many good things. And for me, half of the IPCPR is walking into a trade show floor that's so big that smells so good with all the tobacco that's it's being smoked and all the cigars that are being showcased. Um, you can get overwhelmed with it, and I'm really excited to see what the big guys, the really big guys, come out with, and the brand new guys. Was it is it a Warp cigar that came out last year to market?
Warped kind of. Yeah, they kind of hit the market last year. They were kind
Yeah,
of the boutique, I think, that came out of the show.
yeah,
The big winner last year.
yeah. I loved. I think it was called Honeycomb, and I haven't been able to get a hold.
Uncle Mena.
Yeah, I've only been able to get a hold of a couple. I'm just wow. Just really impressive with what they're doing. Um, Incredible stuff. I mentioned them earlier. The guys at Dissident Cigars. I think they make Soapbox and Block.
Good
Um,
cigar, really underrated cigars too. A
yeah,
little edgy marketing, but very good,
yeah,
solid cigars.
yeah,
Crazy guys, but good. I
yeah,
mean, I've seen them. They're usually a tweet up, and they're but
yeah,
good, very good cigars.
yeah. Edgy. I think their marketing is like counter current marketing. And no lie, folks, if you're listening here and you've never been to IPCPR, I go in there and I have a little 10 by 10 standard booth, nothing to showcase or write home to anybody about. I'll never win an award there for a while at least, and I'm happy. And then you've got the Rocky Patels and Altadis and Davidoffs with the grand, huge multiple booth spaces. The guys at Dissident had a similar 10 by 10, maybe a little, maybe twice as large. They literally threw up a bed sheet, spray painted it, put out some really crappy deck chairs and a folding table, and and that is their marketing, and that is kind of their irreverent anti-marketing, and I think they can get away with it because they're lovable, genuine, honest guys that make a great little cigar at a great price point. And it's anti-marketing. I've heard stories of what they're going to do this year, maybe, and I just sit there and go, you'll definitely get attention because I don't think anybody's ever done that on the show floor. And the rules for what you can and can't do on a show floor at a trade show, especially this one, are very stringent, and they're meeting all the requirements. And if they pull off what I've kind of heard, it'll be pretty funny and pretty incredible and pretty attention getting. But again, you couldn't. It's not just marketing; it's a solid stick.
No,
Sticks.
I agree. I agree.
What have you
So
been smoking that's
um,
stood out?
right now, I think the Cubanicon has stood out as a potential cigar of the year candidate.
Hmm.
The Padron 50th anniversary Maduro
Yep. Yep.
lived up to every bit of the hype as far as that cigar goes. Fantastic cigar. Can't it's you can find them now. I bought my first one for over $100, but you can find them in the 40s now. I think some of the
Wow.
retailers are starting to open up those big humidors. So
Wow.
I think they're starting. Camacho's American Barrel Aged
Yep.
legitimate cigar.
I've seen
Uh,
it. Have not
leg-
smoked it.
legitimate. Um, Don Renato Corona that came out the end of last year by Warped. It was a very small run. It's going regular production.
Nice.
That Don Renato is the best cigar I've had. And then the other cigar that Paul and I have been talking a lot about on the show, and they're
Hmm.
coming to the trade show this year, is a company called Luge, Luj cigars,
Yep.
being made out of DR, and they have a foothold in the Chicago Great Lakes area.
Yep.
I really think people need to pay attention to these guys. They are doing. You talk about small batch boutique that's doing it right. They're doing it right.
It's so funny. The first time I heard about them was you. I think it was a Facebook update you put off from your site, and I was like, okay, wait. Well, and if, I hear that name, I'm like, oh, there must be a background with the Winter Luge event or some kind of athletic thing here. I'm like, because every cigar company has a history or a reason or a really deep meaning behind their name. And no, it had nothing to do with the luge. It was totally spelled differently. It's a whole different thing. But I was like, this will be cool. Chicago, I know historically has had some great little cigar companies. I know Cabal is still up there, and a
Yep.
number of others have been there and started there, and of course maybe moved on like we all do to different locations. But some outstanding cigars have come out of that area. Just wild.
No, exactly. And I'll just say I'll give a couple more quick plugs. Roma Craft's Neanderthal.
Oh, yeah.
Um, is absolutely, and of course, they're a sponsor of ours, but we have some really good sponsors: the Debonaires, the Sagas, the
Hmm.
Roberto Durans,
Yep.
and Bombay. We took these on as sponsors because we believe in the product.
Yeah.
And so I got five more questions for you
Sure.
before we actually wrap it up. And what I'm going to do is, I think you've played five questions with the Stogie Geeks. I'm doing a little different spin. I'm
All
going to
right.
do I'm going to do word association. I'm going to name five things, and you tell me the first thing that comes to mind.
All
All right.
right. All right.
All right. The last one's going to be interesting.
All right.
FDA.
Pain in the ass.
Good. Clint Aaron.
Mm, well, two words come into mind: clown and corn dog, and only because the guy, if you don't know Clint, every time I think the Masters or something comes around, he does nothing but sit down and eat corn dogs for like days. And he's a great cigar maker. From the manifestos to the legions, he's just made great stuff. But if you've met him, it shows. Great sense of humor, clowns around a lot about stuff. And just he'll make anybody from the beginner to the novice to the experienced cigar maker appreciate cigars. Everything 262 cigars has really been built around. Well, I can't. I don't want to speak for him, but in my opinion, it's been built around the manifesto cigar and the manifesto he puts out regarding Kennedy and the Cuban embargo and everything that happened back then, and that really kind of sets a tone. And when you can come out of the box with the manifesto and then go for the ideology and the paradigm and everywhere,
Yep, I
and
agree.
still have a great sense of humor and still be like just a true shaman, if you will,
Yep.
of cigar history, says a lot.
Yeah, no, I agree. House of Emilio.
Oh, it's Gary Griffith. I mean, that's my first. That's the first word
No, there's no
pops
wrong
into.
answers here. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first word. I think Gary he announced his retirement a little while ago. Um, a great guy, opened my eyes to a lot of things about the cigar industry since he's been around and done what he's done, had his life experiences. But you know, um, he definitely put his time in. Just an incredible guy. Um, his Grimalkin, the original Grimalkin, he renamed it and then I think changed it a little bit, and I think it's called La Musa now. But the original Grimalkin, there's still some boxes out there. For me and
Yeah,
my palate, it's phenomenal. And he finally told me what's in the cigar. He would not tell me for like 3 years.
I think the blend stayed the same. I think there was something with the tobacco changing when a bunch of changes happened. That's just my theory on
Yeah,
it. I
well,
think
I know the first one because he finally told me, and I was like, wow. So whatever, and I'll never remember the exact species or phylum or whatever or the tobacco that it was, but it was the same tobacco plant grown on 5 different farms in 5 very different microclimates, if you will, and only the top, I forget what that's called, that top. priming that were all aged approximately approximately the same amount of time. So it's same plant, different areas. Which, if you're into wine, you could grow a Pinot Noir grape in 5 different areas, and it would taste absolutely different, just because of what's in the soil, the water, and all these sunlight and all the other things. So the original Grimalkin to me, and I have a box. I don't smoke them too often because I know eventually I'll run out. It just hits me right down the center of my palate. It's to me a phenomenal smoke, and he's a phenomenal guy.
I agree. IPCPR trade show in New Orleans.
Oh, interesting. Interesting, because I know in the back of your mind you're probably thinking the same way like me. It's like, okay, when we're off the show floor, where can we smoke? And the guys and gals at the IPCPR have been so good
They
at
have been. I mean, they really have tried.
Yeah, they're good.
But it's a
And the
problem.
CRA and the Cigar Rights of America folks, Glenn Loop and the others, have been so good at getting us out information like, well, we know we can smoke here, and every hotel where you're at's going to, if you mention you're here for IPCPR, they're going to tell you what the rules are and where you might be able to smoke in, on, around, near, or not near their property. And there are going to be established venues all week, and of course there'll be big private parties, I'm sure. But all that being said, and if anybody's followed it online, you can probably go to the Cigar Rights of America website, and Coop, I know you've covered it, and kind of see what has taken place in Louisiana. It does not surprise me that the next 3 shows for the next 3 years are all going to be in Las Vegas. It's just easier.
I agree. And the last question, and I know you know who this person is.
Oh, okay.
Yanet Garcia.
Woo!
Who I found out through you who this person is.
Aerobic enthusiast. Well, I can only use one word, right?
You can do whatever you want. There's no wrong in it.
Aerobic enthusiasm, I guess, would be a good way to put it.
Weather forecasting will never be the same.
Never. Ever.
Yeah. So Tom, thank you. If you could stay on the line for 1 minute after we wrap this up, I'd appreciate it. I got to ask you one question.
Sure, absolutely. And thank everybody for listening. You guys, listen to the Stogie Geeks. Great information on a regular basis. The same goes with Coop's website and all his social media updates. Coop, you are genuine. You are prolific. You're great with the follow through. And of course, the same holds for everybody else in the Cigar Media Association. If you guys weren't out there doing what you do every day, I think a lot of things will get kind of lost in the minutia, and it really keeps all of us on our toes. Manufacturers to retailers to consumers. So just thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Just to wrap up, we will have a contest. The contest I am giving away is a 3-pack of Romeo Toros and Tubos, and we'll also throw in a Stogie Geek Smoke Naked shirt. The trivia question tonight, you email it to the show at stogiegeeks.com. Tell me the cigar maker that was the inspiration for Tom's Spills by the Bunch, and you can email that to the show at stogiegeeks.com. This will put a wrap on episode 146. Next week, we will be welcoming a new guest of Stogie Geeks. We have Tony Bellato of La Barber Cigars and Lost and Found. So he'll be making his Stogie Geeks debut. Thanks to Tom Pearson. Thanks to Steve Saka. Thanks to Chris and Nick at the studio for holding the fort down. They do a great job. They keep this show going. And we'll see you all next week.